This week on Cosmic Cantina, we are going to dive into mysterious cases of missing persons. And could those be related to portals, natural portals on Earth? And, of course, we mentioned Bigfoot. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and every week I go to my favorite bar, Cosmic Cantina, and kick back with my co-hosts, Josh Golembeski and Matt O'Connor. We talk about aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, ancient cultures, and anything from the unseen world that needs a little illumination. Welcome to the Cosmic Cantina. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and today I'm drinking a girly Mexican beer, and Josh is drinking whiskey.
A man's drink.
Matt is drinking an ale.
It's a beer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying.
You're welcome.
What's going on tonight, friends? How we feeling? You ready to get down? You ready to talk about some weird stuff?
Before we get into this week's episode, I just want to address something. Last week, we released an episode with the Navy and the UFO situation, saying the Navy was denying that anything was happening, but pilots could report UFOs, but they weren't going to share that with anybody. But then, of course, we put that out there, and then the Navy put out the UFO videos and said, "Oh, they're real."
They changed
One day
the tune.
later.
Yeah, right after we did it. Yeah.
We missed it.
Yeah, so we forced their hand.
We did. We made disclosure happen.
Yeah,
It was probably us. Yeah.
Yeah. Most likely.
But anyway, I feel like it's been out for a week now. A lot of people talked about it. I think we'll sort of dive in maybe on our own episode of it once we get some more information. We'll see how it develops.
Yes.
So we just wanted to save our butts. So now we're going to dive into our episode on portals.
Yeah, break it down, Melissa.
I wanted to talk about a story that I found a year ago that I used for one of my ancient civilization shows that I wrote and produced. And it's a show about these disappearing hippies in Stonehenge that happened in the 70s.
Break it down.
Hippies.
So,
okay.
Hit me. I'm always into hippies and disappearances, so let me know.
That's your thing.
I love a good
Okay.
disappearing hippie story.
All right, so I have to tell you the backstory. So I was looking for a different angle on Stonehenge because everybody's covered, it's summer equinox, winter equinox. I was like, I want a different angle. Came across this story, and I thought, oh, wow, a new take. So the story goes like this. It's August 1971. A small group of teenage hippies, go to Stonehenge. At this point, you can go to Stonehenge. There's no gates. You can just walk into Stonehenge at any time, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. So they decided they were going to camp out inside the actual henge. And around the henge is some farms. There's not a lot of people, but there are a couple farms. And so they have a fire going in the middle, and then somehow in the middle of the night, a farmer reports this like blue lightning strike right in the middle of the henge, and he hears a bunch of screaming, and then that's it. So he's like, well, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to call the local cops. The cops show up, and they see this smoking fire, and what looks like a bunch of people camping, but all of those 5 people disappeared. All those teens disappeared, and they're still missing today.
And wait, so it wasn't just a lightning strike that obliterated those poor hippies?
No, there's no bodies. There's nothing. It was literally they just evaporated. They just disappeared. That's it.
Weirdness.
Right.
It sounds very Missing 411, David Paulides.
Out of nowhere.
Big fans. I
Right.
know we are.
But what else do we know about Stonehenge? That's
Well, there's people like Maria Wheatley, who's into dowsing, and she's picked up different ley lines and crosses. It's just she thinks this is a big energy vortex, which makes sense, which is maybe why they made the stones in that circle to magnify it. I thought that was interesting because maybe there is something to it. Maybe there is a vortex there. Maybe that magnified it, and they were there at the right time, and who knows what they were doing.
So do you think it magnifies it, or they created it to make a portal? Or they sent something there and made a bunch of giant stone structures there to help amplify it?
I think
the
they
hippies?
sent something there.
Okay.
Whoever made it a long time ago, the Druids or whoever it was,
Yeah.
they sent something there.
Or it could be even more ancient than that.
So that's interesting. So you said we don't really know what the hippies were doing there. So maybe they were sort of, I don't know, conjuring some crazy shit, or they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah.
Well, I did a little research on this, and I think this is a good story to start this discussion because I love talking about portals and missing people. But it looks like that story is an urban legend based off of a 1970s British sci-fi series called Quatermass, and the episode that people think it was based off is called Ringstone Round. And you can barely find anything on the internet about it, but I found a couple like really weird videos, and it is a bunch of hippies around a megalithic structure that is Stonehenge, but in the show I think they call it something else. And it's not exactly like hippies smoking weed in an altered state getting hit by lightning, but in the show hippies are always singing around it, singing this weird creepy ass song.
Ooh.
And then
Like a cult?
Like culty, but the story is kind of, not to go too deep into it, they're singing around Stonehenge, and then a light kills like thousands of people on the planet. It's like this sci-fi kind of like Twilight Zone episode. It could be based off that. I don't know. I hate to... That show came out in the late 70s, and this story is from the early 70s, so it could be either someone like took that story and was like,
based
yeah.
a show on that.
Yeah, or the opposite. That story inspired that TV show. Because a lot of like Twilight Zone episodes, a lot of like
True.
weird shit out there is usually inspired by something, so it could be either way.
Right.
It's hard to find proof.
Like most art, though. You
Yeah,
hear
exactly.
a story, and you're like, oh, I should explore that. Even if it's fiction.
No, totally. It might also be based off of Outlander. Outlander, the series in England, is based off of a woman appearing at like one of those stone sites, and then like suddenly appearing in time.
She travels
something.
back in time.
Yeah, but
Has sex
Right.
with Highlanders.
I hate to be the skeptic
Something
here
like
because
that.
I'm definitely all in. Someone's like aliens, I'm like yes.
Stonehenge hippies?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Josh has drawn a line.
Sorry to
I'm the
shit
son
all
of two
over your
hippies,
story,
too.
Melissa, but
No, I think it's a great story. I think it's important to see the other side of it. Doesn't mean I don't believe or disbelieve in it. You know, it has nothing
well,
to do
yeah. I
with
mean,
that.
if it happened before this, what was it, Quatermass, whatever that thing came
This
out?
show is called Quatermass. Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
But, the thing is, there actually is ley lines that cross. So that is true, that when certain ley lines cross that are powerful, they're powerful ley lines, that they do create some kind of energy. Does that mean that a bunch of hippies disappeared in 1971? I don't know.
No.
But I'm just saying there is
Maybe, yeah.
some energetic presence there.
You're right, and that energetic presence is seen across the world in many different sites, and there are many credible, easily researched disappearances of people around the world, like Mesa Verde, the work of David Paulides, which is really interesting. It's more national parks, not megalithic structures, but if you do some research, you can find out there that there is a lot of energy places that are portals or potential doorways to another place that seem like people a long time ago kind of knew, and either they built structures for it or they stumbled across it. Either the structure itself, like we were saying earlier,
Right.
enhances it, or they stumbled across it. Like there was this great episode of it was on History Channel called Vanished, where David Paulides went to Mesa Verde and they measured using science. They measured.
What?
They measured that the time was actually there's a time anomaly at Mesa Verde in the cliff dwellings in Colorado.
Cool. I didn't see that episode.
Yeah, there's like a half a second. Like if you stand like a couple hundred yards away and they measured it using science, they figured out that you're actually slightly behind in time.
Yeah, so one guy was standing on one side, the other guy was standing on the other side, and they were shooting like a laser and measuring time and space or something like that. They noticed that there was a time difference of like a fraction of a second or something like that.
Yeah, like a real difference.
Yeah, measurable difference that shouldn't have been there. So anyway, he goes to another sciencey guy in a lab,
Yeah.
and he basically is talking about, what kind of evidence would we see if a portal or a black hole, I guess he starts explaining, what kind of traces would it leave. And when Paulides shows him the findings that they had found at Mesa Verde, he says, yeah, that would be pretty standard evidence to suggest that some sort of anomalous portal.
But then you go
sort of thing
further to
happened.
say that one, it's already technically possible to maybe create that, and there's membranes between different parallel universes, and that someone could potentially, even within our own time right now, activate a portal
Yeah.
to suddenly open and take someone in and then close it when you want.
Right, you just snatch them up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he mentions it in the...
Or maybe it goes on and off by itself. I mean, just because there's not a ruin there doesn't mean that the natural structure of the Earth isn't making a portal itself.
Yeah, it just
right?
it could be randomly sort of generating by itself.
Mesa Verde is a beautiful
creepy.
place. There's a reason why the Native Americans went there.
Right, they sense the energy.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys been to Sedona?
No, I haven't. My brother has and talks about how it's weird there.
It's super weird. Some people really vibe with it, and some people don't. I feel that when I was there, I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. I did not like being in Sedona at all.
Really?
But I heard through other people that are in this space and go there to meditate that there's too many people that are there for the wrong reasons, trying to tap into its energy, and it has created more of a negative vortex. I don't know if that's true.
Oh, for like dark reasons, or they just don't understand it and they want to be in that
Probably
space.
both.
Yeah.
Right? I don't
That's
know.
where you go when you
sense.
meditate, bro. You go down there to Sedona.
But my sister
When you're
and my
60.
brother-in-law went there before for I think it was before they had my first niece. So they went horseback riding, and she was going really slow, and he had gone like with the guide like way far away, and she started coming up to this person, and she started to talk to them. Like she saw somebody that was riding a horse from the back, and as she got closer, it disappeared. It was,
Really?
And my sister is not one to believe in ghosts. She was like,
not,
that was really creepy. She's like,
she's not drawn to
hey,
that
come
stuff at
back
Really?
to my brother-in-law, because they were like way up the trail. Yeah.
Yeah, that would freak you out a little bit.
So it's like a glitch. It's like you're seeing all these timelines at the same time. Kind of. I think that's like what Sedona is. But I feel, from what I've heard from other people, that some people have been messing with it. So that is what sometimes feels negative.
So, well, I don't know what the rock formation is made up of in Sedona. I feel like we could Google that if we needed to. But anyway,
I'm on it.
She's
Google
on it.
that.
Great. Good thing this bar has amazing
We're going to figure
internet.
out what the mystery is behind portals in this podcast.
Yeah, we're going to work
We're
it
not
out.
going to use science. We're going to use the
gonna solve
internet in our minds.
Yeah.
It's going to be pissing. That's New England for awesome.
Oh, thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, anyway, so in Missing Fallen 1, Paulides talks about the fact that, boulder fields is a common place where people go missing, as well as, bodies of water. But specifically granite is the rock that he talks about as being. So I don't know if holds some sort of electric charge or some sort of, energy. I've heard people talk about how it's a great conductor of piezoelectric energy.
Yep.
Which is...
Totally know what that
Lots of tests that have been done on that.
Right. Well, there you go. Our resident scientist.
You went to the premiere of David Paulides' latest film, Missing 401, The Hunted.
The Hunted, yeah. No, it was great. I got to meet a few of the people who were involved in the making of the film and who actually was starring in the film as well. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty interesting documentary.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
really liked it. The first one, I
stuff.
wasn't, as a filmmaker, I didn't think it was ideal. That's a polite way of saying I didn't think it was well put together. But the second one, I thought was awesome. And
Yeah.
it had a couple stories in there that are definitely related to not just missing people, but what we're talking about portals in general, or places where multiple things are happening at the same time. Well, we really haven't talked about that yet. It's backing up a bit the Stonehenge story. Like, that was just one incident of lightning and strangeness there. But what we find in these places that where portals could possibly exist, like Skinwalker Ranch, Mount Shasta.
Right.
There's many of these. Look at the Blackwater, the Bridgewater Triangle in New England. All these places, what they'd experience is not just one
The Great
thing.
Lakes.
Great Lakes. They experience multiple things. So it's either it's UFOs, classic UFOs. It's Bigfoot. It's were creatures. It's in Skinwalker Ranch. There's a great story about a
Cryptids,
jacked
yeah.
hyena. There's just like a really muscular hyena. A hyena is just like lifting a lot of weight or something like that. Like, it's just funny. Yeah. Going back to Missing 401, they go to. There's an awesome story. You guys ever heard of the Sierra Sounds? We should play that on the podcast. The Sierra Sounds. You're familiar with that?
No.
Sierra Sounds are recorded in the 70s. This is in the movie, but it's also something that's been in the Bigfoot culture for a long time.
What movie?
Missing 411.
Oh,
Hunted.
it's okay.
But a long time ago in the 70s, these guys went out and basically recorded Bigfoot. And what it sounds like is they coined the phrase samurai chatter. So they sound like chimpanzees with like deep Asian accents. So they'll be like, they sound like they're talking to each other. So they recorded these
I
sounds.
have heard of
super
this.
racist.
Yeah. What was that? What was that? Should we cut that out?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I mean, it does sound like that.
It does. That's what it sounds like.
It does. No, it's pretty interesting. And not only did they record the sounds, but they sent it to some sort of linguist
What did they say?
person. And so not only were they able to ascertain that the voice or the vocals came from a creature that was at least 8 foot tall,